Brianna. Good morning.
Good morning.
I've got all the staff recorded. Morning, Jason, Michael, Sarah. Melissa joined us. Kathy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
480. Who's 480?
Hi, it's Mateo too.
Oh, Mateo. Good morning. Thank you.
Morning.
If you're not speaking, can you please mute yourself? Thank you. Hey, Jet, good morning.
Good morning.
JC. Hey, John. Are you on the call or did you step away?
Yes. No.
Question, since the council members are appointed, new appointments, are they all listed as council members now? Or as guests for this meeting? Does it depend on loyalty of oath and anything else?
Yeah, the only person who is still technically a guest is JC.
Who is Jason?
Everyone. JC Parkus.
So JC,
Everyone else
JC is a
official
guest.
still.
I'm sorry. Tell me again. JC is a council member now.
No, JC is a guest still.
Okay. Sorry, JC. There's so many people joining in that I don't know who's who. So let me get here. Bridget, Felix, Raina, council member.
Good morning.
Yes, she is.
Thank you. Good morning. I apologize. I am going through the list frantically for Melissa. Jesse is a council member.
Yes.
Brianna is a council member, right?
No.
No, guest. Okay. Should have you do this. Where's Brianna? Guest. Jacqueline. Tell me who Jacqueline is.
Yes.
Thank you. Kelly, Kim, Mary. Melissa, you have 13. But wait, let me get Ashley. Hold on one second. Ashley is our intern.
Okay, I will give it one more minute and then we're going to get started, okay?
Yeah, let me just go. CJ is our council member.
Yes, she is.
Thank you. AJ joined us. We have Kristen. You have more than enough now. They're all coming in. And Kristen Mackey, Christina Lopez, Christina Lopez, Megan's is in. My goodness. Gabby, what else? Kelly. Okay. under Kelly Roberts on the name list. I don't know. I apologize. Who is that? Matt?
I'm Kelly Roberts.
I know, but under Kelly Roberts on the name list, there's a Gmail account. It's Matt. I apologize. I don't know.
I believe that's Madison.
Madison, last name, please. What's the last name? I'm documenting for minutes, please. What's the name?
It looks like Latham. Latham.
Is that a guest? I'm going to put guest
Sorry.
unless you know it otherwise.
I don't think, sorry, I don't think Maddie is actually on the call. She is a cab worker who works with Sophie Stern. And so she's included in the invitation list. But I don't see her as actually being on the call.
Okay. Let me just make a note here.
So are you looking under the list of also invited?
I am looking at
Or-
everyone who has called, who is, yeah, so I apologize, invited, yes.
Okay.
So that's not, okay, okay, so let me see here. Jana, JC, Jacqueline. Okay, I think I'm good. So Sophie has not called in yet.
No.
Okay,
Okay, well, we definitely have quorum, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody, and thank you to the ADDPC full council meeting. I'm going to call our meeting to order at 10:05 a.m. Marcy, would you like to do roll call, please?
I will, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing or missing folks here. So I'm just gonna go through double checks here. Okay, Melissa, we'll start with you, please.
Okay, hi, Melissa Van Hook, Council Chair, also Chair for the Meaningful Careers Committee, and I sit on Executive and our Behavioral Health and our Planning Work Plan Group.
Okay, thank you. Ken.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kim Counts and a council member.
Thank you. Monica.
Monica Cooper, self-advocate, council member.
Thank you. Vanessa.
Hi, this is Vanessa, self-advocate, council member.
Thank you, Vanessa. Jana.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Jana Merle, representing Raising Special Kids, parent of a young adult with a disability, and also committee chair for the System Access and Navigation Committee.
Great. Someone please mute, please. Thank you. Thank you, Jana. Kathy.
Good morning, Kathy Lewandowski, member. I chair the work group planning committee, and I have a family member that is IDD.
Thank you. Mateo.
Hi, Mateo Srihap. I'm a self-advocate.
Thank you, Mateo. Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Slaughter, and I'm a council member representing a woman who had been previously institutionalized.
Thank you, Mary. Bianca.
Hi, good morning, Bianca Damara, family representative.
Thank you, Bianca. Vijay.
Good morning. My name is Vijay Sari. I am a family representative, and I am on the executive board as well as the grants committee.
Thank you. Kelly.
Good morning, everyone. Kelly Roberts, council member.
Thank you. Raina.
Good morning, Raina Sims, new council member representing DES Division of Aging and Adult Services.
Thank you. Jesse.
Jesse Barbosa. I believe my appointment went through. I'm the representative for the Arizona Department of Health Services.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome. Let me see here. CJ.
Good morning, CJ Loisel, new council member representing Access and also guardian of an adult living with IBD.
Terrific. Thank you. JJ.
Morning, everyone. JJ Rico, Vice Chair for the Council and also CEO for Disability Rights Arizona.
Thank you, JJ. Is there any other council members that I missed before I move on to staff?
Krista Mackey, member and representative DES Vocational Rehabilitation.
Thank you. Good morning, Kristen. Okay. Anybody else? All right, staff. John Myers, please.
Good morning, John Myers, Executive Director.
Michael.
Good morning, everyone. Michael Leva, Contracts and Grants Coordinator for the Council.
Lonnie.
Good morning, Fiscal Manager.
Jason.
Morning, everyone. Jason Sneed, Research and Communication Specialist.
Thank you. Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Sarah Roof, Communications Director for the Council.
And welcome to your reintroduction meeting again. Thank you. Ashley, our intern. I don't know, she's maybe on mute. Okay, but we have our, well, she's not here yet. Okay, and then I'm Marcy Crane. I am Contracts Manager. And then it looks like we've got a couple of guests, so just bear with me. JC.
Good morning, JC Farkas with the Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities, guest and pending member.
Thank you. Brianna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brianna Farmer. I'm one of the legislative liaisons with the Department of Economic Security.
Thank you. And Jacqueline Gonzalez.
Good morning, Jacqueline Gonzalez. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Any other guests that I missed? Call. Okay, Melissa, back to you.
Okay, Marcy, thank you so much. Let's move on to agenda item B, our minutes review and approval from our full council meeting from January 19th, 2024. I'm hoping everybody had a chance to review those minutes. Are there any comments or corrections or notations that need to be made on the minutes? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote to, or excuse me, a motion to approve the meeting minutes as written. Do I have a motion?
This is Vijette, so moved.
Thank you, Vijette. Do I have a second?
This is
I'll
Kim.
second it.
Okay, I think Ken beat you to that, Monica. Thank you both.
That's okay.
Thank you, Ken. All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 All those
Aye.
opposed? Sorry. All those opposed, please say nay. Is anyone abstaining? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right, agenda item C, our fiscal and contract update with Lonnie, our fiscal manager.
Thank you, Melissa. Give me 1 second to share the screen. Hopefully you guys are able to see the ADDPC financial update.
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. The council has received the full allotment for fiscal year 2022 in the amount of $1,500,930. This is level funding to fiscal year 2021, excluding the Puerto Rico reallotment of $34,412. ACL has granted a no-cost extension for fiscal year 2022 funds, extending the project period through September 30th of 2024. The council has fully obligated these funds and will need to complete the work by this September. There's approximately $23,171 remaining to be liquidated. The council has received a third allotment for fiscal year 2023 funding in the amount of $398. This brings the current fiscal year 2023 total amount to $1,501,328. The council has fully obligated these funds. The obligation and period of performance requirements are both through September of this year as well, with the final report due by September 30th of 2025. The council has also received a third allotment for fiscal year 2024 funds in the amount of $200,476. This brings the current award amount to $711,770. The obligation and project periods are through September 30th of 2025. The final report will be due September 30th of 2026. We have not received the final award for fiscal year 2024 yet, but it should be coming relatively soon as they finally stopped with all the continuing resolutions. But the anticipation is that it will be at level funding. Any questions on this sheet? Okay, moving on to the additional ADDPC awards. This will probably be the last time that you will see this sheet, as we've pretty much fully spent both of these, or the funding is now over and final reports have been submitted. So starting with the access to COVID-19 vaccines funding, the council received an additional award in the amount of $84,288 for COVID-19 specific projects. ACL granted a 1-year no-cost extension for these funds. The funds needed to be obligated and the work completed by September 30th of 2023. The final report was due by the end of January of this year. The council spent $82,809 and has reverted $1,479. So final reports have been completed for this top section up here. Expanding, the second additional funds that we received was for expanding the public health workforce within the disability network. The council received an award in the amount of $95,319 to expand public health workforce within the disability network. These funds are being tracked and reported on separately. The obligation and project periods are through September 30th of this year. However, the contract for this project has already been concluded. The council has received and paid the final invoices for this amount, for the full amount of $95,319 on this project. We'll just need to submit final reports once the true award period is over in September. Any questions on this sheet? Okay, moving on to the council funded projects. I'm sorry, it's kind of small. Let me see if I can blow this up. This sheet shows all the current projects funded by the council. Not much has changed on this sheet from the last meeting. We haven't awarded any new contracts recently. We're following up with any outstanding invoices, and that's about all I have to report on this sheet. Any questions here? Okay, fourth and final sheet. Bear with me, guys. This one's even smaller. Let me see if I can increase this. This sheet reflects the projects outlined in the fiscal year 2024 work plan, as well as the funding that has already been approved in the prior years. For fiscal year 2024 funds, these will be used primarily for projects to be decided on for fiscal year 2025. Currently, there is a small anticipated shortfall. I'll scroll down. Of $70,672 for fiscal year 24 funds. However, there are several new RFGA projects that have not been funded yet, and this leaves some flexibility if the council is unable to award projects at the levels they've been budgeted for. So oftentimes we'll award a proposal and they don't fully spend their award amount, or with RFGAs, we set a threshold limit and the proposals that we get don't meet that threshold limit. So this offers some flexibility there. So don't be too concerned about the shortfall amount. Any questions on this sheet? Okay, that's it for me. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Lonnie, thank you so much. Let's move on to agenda item D, our executive director report with John.
Well, good morning again, everyone. Thank you all for your willingness to join us this morning, especially on this day after the late night release of Taylor Swift's new album. I have a striking suspicion that this is why Sophie is not joining us today. As we all know, she is quite the Swiftie. So thank you all. I am delighted to be able to report that we have a very nearly full complement of official council members now. As had been reported in the past, we had some issues with boards and commissions processing some of the nominations for council members and handling some of the appointments and reappointments, but we're pretty close to being full now. I want to just quickly go over the folks who either have been appointed or reappointed recently. We now have a Division of Aging and Adult Services Representative, Raina Sims. All of these folks, by the way, introduced themselves earlier, but just to reintroduce them. Our Department of Health Services Rep. Jesse Barbosa, CJ Loisel from Access, Kristen Mackey, a reappointment from RSA Vocational Rehabilitation, and Kelly Roberts, reappointment from the Institute for Human Development at NAU. We also have reappointments of Bijet Sari, Vanessa Felix, and Kin Chung Counts. And we are, at this point, we have a nominee for our Department of Ed appointment or Department of Ed slot, but we don't have a formal confirmation that that person has been moved through the process yet. And we are awaiting the formal appointment of J.C. Farkas as our Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities representative and reappointment of Monica Cooper, although the most recent roster I got shows Monica's term extending through 2026. So Monica, I think you're moving through the process right now, and we're pretty close to having that reappointment formalized. Anyway, it's all very good news because we've been waiting. In Raina's case, we've been waiting since August of 2022 to get her appointment in place, and some others have been almost a year in the making. So it's all really good news. We do have several folks whose terms will expire this year, and I will be in contact with you all to get to gauge your interest in remaining on the council and to get whatever paperwork is necessary to get reappointments done prior to, or get them at least submitted prior to the September expiration date. One last thing I want to note on that is I did get notified by boards and commissions that there are several individuals who have not submitted their notarized oath of office or oath of office and loyalty. I can't remember exactly what the form is called, but there is a form that has to be notarized, signed, notarized, and submitted. And if you hear from boards and commissions that your form has not been submitted, please take care of that as quickly as possible. It's really sort of a formality, but it is a legal requirement in order to serve on the council that document be submitted. So so please attend to that if you get word from boards and commissions that it needs to be submitted. On the COVID-19 Public Health Workforce Development Grant that Lonnie mentioned earlier, that project was underway for a period of time from last summer through January of this year. I arrived this morning actually to find a box with print copies of the final report from the Regional Center for Border Health and the Sonoran Center. We're very pleased with that. We did get a draft copy a couple of months ago. We had some revisions that needed to be made, and now we have the final version of the report. I am waiting on an electronic copy, which we will then make available to everybody once we have it in hand. But I just have the print copies right now. This is to kind of reiterate what has been said in previous meetings. This was a project focused on how the public health workforce is serving aging individuals with IDD. We know that the aging population of people with IDD is growing, and that the system is not necessarily well designed or ideally designed at this point to serve that aging population. So these funds were put toward that study. There's a series of focus groups and interviews with people all around the state. And we are now going to be using the results of this study to inform the work of the System Access and Navigation Committee and the project, the next item on the agenda, which is the Bridging Disability and Aging Networks Community of Practice that we were recently invited to join. This is a project that's being funded by the Administration for Community Living, the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities, NACDD, which is our national membership organization, received the grant and is actually administering it. And we are now one of 17 states that has a state, what's called a state alliance team, working to develop policy proposals, systemic change proposals that would benefit the aging and disability networks in the state and bring them closer together so there's greater cooperation, greater collaboration, and ideally better service to aging individuals with disabilities across the state and ultimately we hope across the nation. It's a really exciting project. This is very near and dear to the heart of many folks on the council, Mary Slaughter, I think, being foremost among them. She's really been leading the charge on this. We have a committee together that includes, or a team, I should say, that includes both the council, the two USEDs, Center for Disability Law or Disability Rights Arizona, the ARC of Arizona, the ARC of Tempe, the Arizona Statewide Independent Living Council, and a variety of other folks, including Division of Aging and Adult Services and Division of Developmental Disabilities. We are adding to that team, gosh, even as we speak. I think I got a message just a few minutes ago of someone else who wants to join the team. So we're trying to pull together aging agencies and disability agencies to formalize this work and move forward. I will have more information to share. We just had our first meeting 2 days ago, and I will have more information to share with the council at our June meeting about where we stand on that. Our first task is to develop a work plan to guide our work over the next 2.5 years. I realize this is kind of a sketchy explanation right now, but we will have more details to share once that work plan is developed, which we expect it to be in the next month or so. Legal options manual update. In the information that was sent to you prior to this meeting was a proposal for an update of the legal options manual. Many of you know this is one of the most, maybe the most requested resource from the council. It was a collaboration between what was then Arizona Center for Disability Law and the council, last updated in 2016, I believe. So slightly out of date. Still has a lot of relevant information, but there's a lot that still that needs to be updated. And so we now have a proposal from the Sonoran Center and Disability Rights Arizona to do that update and to have a document that not only includes the newest version of state forms, but something we're most excited about, I think, information on supported decision-making, which is now a legal option here in Arizona. So we need a vote. The staff have already reviewed the proposal. Executive committee reviewed it and approved it last week at the executive committee meeting. And we now need to take a vote of the council to approve moving forward with a contract with the Sonoran Center and a subcontract to Disability Rights Arizona to complete this work. As you can see from the timeline that's in that proposal, we will be completing it by the end of this calendar year. There's one slight revision to it. The Sonoran Center has asked for an extension rather than through November 30th through December 31st to complete the work. We as staff are perfectly fine with that. It doesn't in any way create an issue for us. So it's a slight change, but otherwise everything about the proposal remains the same as far as I understand. Marcy, is there anything I'm forgetting on that we need to add?
No, you covered it nicely. Thank you.
Okay. So Melissa, I would ask you if you can call for a motion and a vote.
Okay, that was the legal options manual.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I am calling for a motion to approve moving forward with the legal options manual update. Before I do that, Mary has raised her hand. Go ahead, Mary.
Oh, I'll go ahead and make that motion.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second. And this is Jana.
Thank you, Jana. All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. Is anyone abstaining?
JJ's abstaining.
Okay, thank you, JJ. Noted. All right, motion carries. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you all. This is an incredibly important project, an incredibly important document, and it's been approved, so I don't have to sell you on it, but this, as I said, is probably the most requested resource of the council. It is also something that we get requests from the Native American Disability Law Center and a lot of our partner agencies for, so we're very excited to be moving forward and to have an updated version. Thank you to the Sonoran Center and to Disability Rights Arizona for undertaking the work. Can't think of two better partners to help us out with this. The last item on my report is the Disability Policy Seminar, which took place last week in Washington, D.C. We had representation from the council in the form of Mike Leba and myself from the staff, and Vijay Sari representing the council membership. And we have asked Vijay if she would give a brief overview of her experience and any highlights of the event. So Vijay, would you like to go ahead?
Absolutely. It was a wonderful opportunity to be able to represent Arizona as one of the Arizona delegates. It was also wonderful to meet other organizations who sent representatives. There were 12 of us total from Arizona. One of the biggest highlights, I think, is hearing the self-advocates themselves ask questions, ask really pertinent questions to what they would like to see at a federal level, to get clarifications. They had questions that I hadn't even thought about, which was just absolutely wonderful and really gave me hope for the work that we're doing and the impact that self-advocates will have with their representatives. The day at the Hill was fantastic. It was, I think John described it best as wear your running shoes. We did a lot of walking and going back and forth to different buildings, meeting with the representatives. There were some great, the seminar, they created some great fact sheets that I think everybody here should have a copy of. So I asked Michael to send that out, and then he and our intern had created a fact sheet about the work that the council does. So I think it's also something, I think it's something that we should actually maintain on an annual basis. It was very helpful to share the work that we do, what our accomplishments have been through our grants. I think it's just something that should be shared, not just on the Hill, but just throughout the state of Arizona. Since that meeting, I actually received an email from Congressman Gosar's office as a follow-up, since his legislative liaison, Michaela, came to Lake Havasu this week. So I had the opportunity to meet with her again. If you're familiar with Congressman Gosar, he is not typically one to champion the work that we do, but the fact that our personal stories made a bit of an impact on his legislative liaison, and she wanted to follow up and just ask some questions, I think was a great big win for the work that we do.
Vijay, thank
Thank
you
you very
so
much,
much.
Vijay. Yeah, I want to emphasize what a tremendous advocate Vijay is. I was involved in several of the meetings on the Hill with her, and her willingness to share her personal story, but also her just extensive knowledge of disability issues and really the critical items relating to this community. It was so impressive, and Vijay, I can't thank you enough for making the trip, taking the time out of your busy life to be part of that event, and congratulations on getting that follow-up with Congressman Gosar's office. I would point out we had a chance to meet with 10 out of our 11 congressional offices. Representative Biggs was the only one whose office did not schedule time with us. Special thanks to Mike Leva for the incredible effort he put into getting those appointments. It was not an easy task, but it was certainly worthwhile. I've been attending this event since 2014, and I can tell you that this year was far and away the most valuable, the most worthwhile, especially in terms of those Hill visits. So thanks to Mike, thanks you to Vijay. And if anyone is interested in attending next year, it will be taking place April 7th through the 9th in Washington, of course. And we do typically make space and have the resources for a couple of council members to go. So if you're interested in being part of this event, it's really fantastic. And we would welcome you to be part of it. I'll share more information as we get closer next year. That is That is it, Melissa, for my report, unless anyone has questions.
We had two hands raised. The first one, Mary, who made the motion. Mary, did you still have a question for John?
No, that's a mistake.
Okay. Okay. All right. And then now you got to put your hand down again. Kathy did have a hand raised.
I did, and I don't know if it's an appropriate time to say it, but I hope that in the future, maybe we can figure out a way to translate legal options into other languages other than Spanish and English. That's just, I think with us working with the refugee resettlement group, maybe there's another language there, but it's just an idea.
We will, sorry, JJ, go right ahead.
Yeah, no, obviously we appreciate the council's support, but Kathy, if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing maybe the top languages that you all received requests for, and then maybe we can, separate and apart from this funding, look at our budget and add that to something, because we get a lot of requests and we would clearly accommodate on an individual basis, but if you're seeing a larger populations or where we could make a good investment, let us know that, and we'll put that in our budget for next year. So yeah, happy to work on that.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for John? All right, thank you so much. We're going to move on to agenda item E, our committee and work group reports, starting with our grants committee. Monica and Marcy, you're up first.
We didn't have a meeting recently. We're having a meeting on the 7th of June, I believe it was. Am I right, Lonnie?
Yeah, you're correct. The meeting invitation has gone out for the next grants committee meeting. So those members who haven't replied, if you could notify me whether or not you're available, so that way we're still looking for quorum. But yeah, there weren't any proposals or awards to be voted on. So yeah, we haven't had a grants meeting in a little while. Next one again is June. So thanks, Monica.
Yeah.
Monica, I'll jump in with a status of some of the things that will be going through your committee in June. So we do have a couple of things that are in the works right now. The conference sponsorship grant solicitation is under an evaluation process right now. There were 10 applications submitted. So whatever the recommendation is from that committee to the council will be going through the grants meeting in June and then executive and full council. So we're looking forward to those. And any awards would be a one-year process, a one-year contract from July 1 to June 30th of next year. The next item is the solicitation that is still out. It's the Internet Safety Training and Resource Development. That is due next Thursday on the 25th. There's $100,000 to apply for funding, and we hope that multiple awards can be made. So that is available right now. It's been out for almost 5 weeks. The staff is working on a scope of work for abuse and neglect regarding identification and reporting and training. Need to finalize some of the details on that scope of work so that it can be released in June. And any recommendations from an evaluation committee will be going through the council most likely in August and September, and that will be an award hopefully to make for 1 year beginning October 1 through September 30th of next year. We are also reviewing a proposal right now from NAU IHD regarding assistive technology with the SIPSI students. We're going to have a presentation on SIPSI on the SIPSI grant that the council funded for 4 years. That's for college, for students with IDD, attending college and providing the supports and services. It was a wonderful grant to support, and we're excited for the presentation later on today. But this was an idea that was in our work plan for some time, and it was just kind of working out some of the details with Kelly and her staff. So John, Lonnie, and I are going to be meeting later on today to kind of go over their proposal. And Kelly, you may receive some clarification questions later on today or Monday, but hopefully we can move on this quickly for that. And then I do want to let the council know, as Lonnie mentioned on one of the budget sheets, there are several grants that are up for renewal right now for year 2. That includes the self-advocacy grant and support decision-making for year 2. The contractor is the ARC of Arizona. So they are working, they've contacted me to let me know that they're finalizing both of their year 2 proposals. And then the other 3 is the pregnancy and parenting support programs with the 3 state universities. They've also contacted me that they were interested in applying for year 2, and those are due next month. So staff will be reviewing those proposals in the coming weeks. Any questions I can answer on this part? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Most appreciated. Okay, next we're going to hear from Jana, our System Access and Navigation Committee.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Yeah, we were able to meet on March 12th. We had a great, productive meeting. As always, at the beginning, we reviewed our purpose and goals and vision for the work group. Then we were able to work on, well, Amber Owens, our previous, well, Amber, the student that was helping us develop the Getting Started guide, provided an update for us. We had some feedback on some changes that she had made, some beautiful changes to the navigation page. And also, as a group, we made a decision to move forward with the evaluation tool that was already created. And we also are in the process of making some recommendations to do a pilot to a group of different populations to use the guide and then fill out the survey so we can get some feedback on that, just to see how easily it's navigated and to identify any areas that we need to pay some more attention to. We talked about the resource guide living on the ADDPC website. So we had some good conversation about that. And then we kind of moved into the next part of our work. John gave us an update on the Public Health Workforce Development Project. I think he talked about that a few minutes earlier in his executive report. And if I'm understanding that correctly, we're still waiting for, John, help me here, was the report that you talked about earlier that was in print version, that's this report, right?
That's correct. That is the report we discussed in the meeting.
Perfect. That was my understanding too. So we're still waiting for that to come in an electronic version. And then, let's see, I'm just taking a look at our notes. I'm just taking a second look here. And then I believe, John, if I have missed anything about the community of practice work, if you can help me fill in any gaps on that about where we're at with that, other than waiting for receiving the report and then moving forward with the community of practice work. And then after that, we adjourned and planned our next meeting for June 18th. Committee members and John.
I think you've covered it.
Okay, perfect. I was going to say, I invite you to fill in any blanks for what I might have missed.
Sounds like you got it, Jana.
Thank you.
You are most welcome. Thank you so much. Okay, next up is me for the Meaningful Career. Wait a second, just saw a hand raised. Just opened my notes, sorry there.
It's me.
Go right ahead, Ken. Thank you.
A thought just a while ago. I just wonder with the guides, are we able to develop an app? It's like nowadays everybody is into the app that our members or families and people can access to an app instead of going through a site or one pager. We can be lost, and our sites are so difficult to maneuver sometimes that they can go to an app that provides the information. I mean, it's just a thought that just occurred to me.
Thank you, Kim. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Melissa.
No, go ahead, Jana. This is yours.
Sarah, I just saw you raise your hand. Did you want to chime in too?
Yes, I have some thoughts, Ken, about that. I think you're right. People access things on their phones a lot more now. Whatever final version that Getting Started guide takes, we're going to make sure it's going to look good on a smartphone. Now, it may be housed on a website. Apps are really expensive. We already know that there's going to be we have to be very careful about making sure whatever we share is updated often, and that's much easier to do from like a website, even sharing on like an Instagram story highlight, for people who prefer social media. So we were definitely discussing a lot of that during our committee. But if you have suggestions on certain things you'd like to see, the way it appears on a smartphone, for example, we're all ears. I would love to hear your ideas.
Thank you, Sarah. That's pretty much what I was going to say too, is that we're open for suggestions and we want it to be as user-friendly as possible. So thank you, Ken.
Okay. And while you're on the screen, Sarah, welcome back. I think this is your first full council meeting. Thank you. Thank you. For those of you that don't know, Sarah is our communications director and was with us a few years ago and came back, and we're so thrilled we get to have her back. So thanks for joining us. Yay. Okay, look at all the hearts for you. All right. Next up is me. I'm going to do a very brief, for a change, Meaningful Careers Committee report. Just going to restate our goal real quick. So by federal fiscal year 2026, ADDPC will increase the career potential of people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities, IDD, and link them with resources needed to achieve their career goals. There are 3 objectives that support the goal. The first objective focuses on transition age youth, ages 14 to 22. The second on working age individuals, ages 22 and older. And the third on families and individuals that support them. In federal fiscal year 2024, the Meaningful Careers Work Plan includes 14 activities. So the Meaningful Careers Committee met on April 2nd and reviewed the federal fiscal year 2024 work plan. We are in the second half of the federal fiscal year, and there is quite a bit of work that needs to be completed by September 30th of this year. During our meeting, we also discussed new projects that may be funded in the new fiscal year. Mike is reaching out to organizations for additional information to help us make our recommendations. So we're hoping we get some good feedback. We're excited about our new webinar series, Creating a Life Full of Possibilities. The first 5 webinars will kick off May 8th with a webinar each month through September. The first session is Person-Centered Planning, the Steps to Your Future, and will feature Cheryl Bate-Harris with the National Disability Rights Network. Cheryl has over 30 years of experience working with people with disabilities and has conducted nationwide trainings for protection and advocacy, client assistance programs, and community organizations. Cheryl is adamant that work is the only route out of poverty, and I agree, and everyone should be able to find real work in the community at real wages. So more information will be coming soon. I hope you can attend the webinars. And I want to thank Mike for all of the hard work he puts into my committee and so much else. He spoils me with my updates on what he does. So Mike, thank you so much for all that you do. You're most appreciated. Okay, next up, we're going to hear from Jason on our behavioral health and IDD, our behavioral health crisis response community survey. I think he's going to talk about.
All right, guys, let me give me 1 second to pull up the community survey here, and we'll get it started. So let me see here. All right. Can you guys see that? Is that coming up?
No, I cannot see it yet on my screen.
Oh, let me pull it
You're
up.
coming. Oh, there you go,
it is.
Jason.
Sorry about that. Computer issues. All right, so just a little bit of background first. So the behavioral health and IDD committee started about 2 years ago when we released this crisis report. And through that report, we had some recommendations and things. And then after we had a press conference, and I think it was, in 2021 in January. And after that press conference, the group decided to develop a core team that meets with different agencies and entities within Arizona. So we did that. One of the issues that we found was that some individuals that use AAC devices were having them removed when they went to behavioral health facilities. So we wrote a letter to address that. And one of the things that happened, a positive thing that happened, was that DDD's OIFA team started training on, the not to remove those the AAC devices or ACOM devices, communication devices for providers and for first responders. And the OIFA team, or which will soon be known as the CARES team, will continue that training. So I just wanted to go over some positives there, that this committee is making a difference. And then after that, we kept asking for data, and nobody had any data. I know nobody was willing to give us the data, so we commissioned a study here, and that's what this study is about. So just to go over very quickly, so here you go. The goal of the audience was for the IDD population, most likely caregivers, individuals with IDD, professionals, and more. The goal was to understand the community's experience with behavioral health and crisis response services. It was broken up into 2 tiers. One tier was people that have not interacted with the behavioral health system, behavioral health crisis system, and the other tier was people who have. So the first results are the people who have not interacted with the with people with the behavioral health system. There were 178 responses throughout the survey. Let's go here. Sorry about the moving around so fast here. So branch 1, I wanted to go to the comments here. There were some comments early on within the survey, and this is again within branch 1. It says one person said we do not call the police ever. Another person said, trying to handle it myself. The hospital is a disaster for our population. We would not allow the behavioral health team to handle the crisis, as they only treat IDD cases as high-priority cases, and we will wind up being mistreated, is what a woman said. Let's go here. Key takeaways from this tier was that those who have not used behavioral health services are unsure about first responders, worried that they won't have the right training for the IDD population. Respondents in this branch believe that they should talk to their DDD support coordinator about what to do in a crisis, but many haven't. So that's some issues there. And then in the branch that have interacted with the behavioral health crisis team. Here's some things that went well. It says thankful on one of the previous case managers was on the call and who we talked to. Being familiar is a huge asset to getting behavior back down, but it was just that by chance that this happened this way. So, and then some other ones here. Specifically assigned caseworkers that we had already established rapport with my child and knew my child was very, was important. So the key theme here was relationships with care providers is huge. So, but most of the respondents answered this, which is nothing. Like, well, it was nothing, which is not good. And there's some other quotes here. And then just a final wrap up here. Let's go to the final slides here. And I will be, if you want me to go over this in more detail, I'm happy to do that. Just in the interest of time here, I was going to do these things. And it says bad news among those who did not report experiences with behavioral health respondents or other personnel wouldn't have the right training to handle the situation. Are worried, so they're worried that the people won't have the, which we talked about. Let's see, where my mouse go? There it is. Sorry. And then the next one here is some more bad news. Among those who did report experiences with behavioral health services, many did not have positive experiences. Good news, people who learned preventive strategies from their behavioral health crisis provider benefited from them. So, and bad news again, among those who did report experiences with their behavioral health crisis service, many did not have. We already did that. I don't know. Oh yeah, sorry, that went back up. Sorry. Good news. Talking to the DDD support coordinator helps, so that's good. It's good to know that that's working. And conclusion here: many members of the IDD community haven't used behavioral health crisis services, and many are worried about what happens if they did. IDD community members who have experienced behavioral health services have significant frustrations. So that's basically what, in a nutshell, that's what the presentation came down to. And one thing we did talk about was, what comes next. And so the core group had some ideas about next steps. One of which is, doing an independent audit, and the other one is creating a task force, which will require some legislation there. But we are open to ideas on how to do that. One of the reasons we did the survey is so that we have data to show people and can move forward that way. Are there any questions? Sorry, I moved through that kind of fast. But
I don't have a question, Jason, but I just have a comment as a member of that committee, and it's that, one of the reasons we may be thinking about an internal audit by an independent auditor or something we can do is that medical care and medical evaluations are not happening for people with IDD, particularly in the autism population. There are some things that lots of people should be screened for. A lot of behaviors that result in crises come from medical issues. For instance, seizures is one of those. and being evaluated with a 24-hour monitoring procedure is really not happening on the basis that it should. And oftentimes people are just being refused. The evaluations are not happening. So if we were able to catch those medical conditions and treat the medical issues, they wouldn't even need the behavioral health system, a crisis system specifically. Indeed. So we feel like if they were getting everything they needed, their screenings, that it would certainly help. So it's one of the things we're thinking about. And we had a lot of luck with the autism task force we did several years ago, that we were able to make improvement in the community. That had to be approved by the legislature and then the governor. That was really helpful. So we're thinking that that's something that maybe we need to do for the behavioral health crisis for this population. That's all my comments. Jason, thank you. And we will be sharing that survey results in full soon here. Okay. Jason, thank you so much. Are you done?
No problem. Yeah, I'm done unless anybody has any more questions. So,
Okay.
all right.
Okay, thank you. Well, hearing none, we're going to move on to our final committee work group report, and that is for a work plan review with Kathy.
So we met on March 8th, and we were given updates by the staff. It was a brief wrap up on the fiscal year 23 work plan. And then we had updates on the 24 annual work plan. The staff provided us information about the objectives and activities and the progress to date on that, what our funding status was at that time, what our proposed commitments were, regarding RFGAs and grant and contract timelines. I think that you've heard updates from all the committees, so I won't go over what they had said. I won't repeat what they said because that's what we got in our work plan committee. Our next meeting is May 17th, and we'll be looking at what the new work plan will be, or what are some proposed ideas for the work plan. I do suggest that if you hadn't have a chance to read some of the reports, that you do, because I think it's very informative and helps you think about things that maybe we need to work on as projects down the road. So that's it.
Thank you, Kathy. Oh, Marcy's got a question.
It's more of a comment to Kathy. I just want to thank her for taking on this committee, because it's a lot of work and it's long meetings. But Sarah and I have had, and to all the members, thank you. Sarah and I have had some preliminary conversations about updating the section for the narrative reports to be posted. So we haven't posted many reports for some of the grants that are going on this year, but we plan to do so as soon as Sarah has a breather from her other responsibilities. But it is something that we need to do so that we give the opportunity for any of the council members to review the wonderful work that many of the grantees are doing. But you could also just contact me personally, shoot me an email and saying, I really am interested in, these reports, and I could just send them to you, but we do want to get them on the website. And I know Sarah's working on trying to figure out how that layout's going to look. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, ladies. Thank you, Kathy. Okay. Well, we are lucky enough this morning to have a couple of presentations today from some of our grantees. The first presenter we're going to hear from is the Institute for Human Development at NAU on supporting inclusive practices in colleges, the SIPC. And Sakina McDonald, and I think if Trisha's with you today, you will be presenting on the project today.
Hi, everyone. I hope you all can hear. I'm so sorry. I'm sharing my screen, and for some reason, are we seeing the slides? I'm not familiar with Google Meets. Okay.
We can hear you and see you. Yep.
I can't see you all, but okay. So thank you all so much for hosting us today. We are going to do a brief overview of our Year 4 activities that were funded through the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council, specifically looking at creating and building bridges for transitioning youth with IDD. We're presenting today myself, Sakina McDonald, as well as Trisha Carver, who is the program manager for the supporting inclusive practices in colleges. And Tricia, if you're comfortable, I can advance the slides, but please, if you need me to step in, don't hesitate to let me know. So Tricia will take our first few slides here.
Great. Good morning, everyone. So today we just want to run through some of our goals or objectives for today are to provide you with an overview of supporting inclusive practices in colleges, or SIPC's Year 4 goals and objectives. We want to talk through some of our activities and deliverables, as well as share with you some of our success stories. So SIPC is a post-secondary transition support program housed at NAU's Institute for Human Development. It was launched in 2020 through funding through ADDPC as a pilot demonstration project. It is also an awardee of the transition and post-secondary programs for students with intellectual disabilities, or TIPSID. So we serve individuals aged 18 to 26 with intellectual disabilities throughout the region. Our region encompasses over 53 square miles of northern Arizona, including many communities with limited services for individuals with disabilities. So we strive to improve the outcomes for individuals with intellectual disabilities participating in post-secondary education experiences by providing them with educational coaching, employment coaching, and peer mentors who utilize person-centered planning. We promote full inclusion in the post-secondary education experience, and we encourage independent living and gainful employment. So our vision, sorry, next slide, please. Our vision is when individuals with intellectual disabilities self-determine and advocate for their education and employment goals and have consistent access to support in inclusive, authentic, and appropriate environments, they will achieve improved transition outcomes. They will achieve advanced educational and social developmental outcomes with opportunities for gainful employment. Overall, they have an increase in overall quality of life. So we execute our vision through implementing our core goals. So the Front Door First encourages students to utilize already available campus resources before looking for specialized resources or services. It encourages them to self-advocate and use self-determination. We also work to increase institutional awareness. We also, our other core value is that we set the bar high. We set the bar high to help students achieve expectations, build good habits, and develop their quote unquote soft skills.
Thank you, Tricia. So Tricia's kind of given a broad overview of the Supporting Inclusive Practices in Colleges program. And today we wanted to just specifically talk about some objectives and activities that we were able to complete in 2023 as a result of funding being awarded to the program through the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council. So we're really just going to kind of focus on what we did in 2023. So the overarching goal for the year 4 was to look at program sustainability. And what we identified was kind of 3 steps or three objectives that we could implement to our current strategy that would help us to create at least a more meaningful and intentional path to sustainability in the event that, you know, we are not funded again through the TIPSIT program. So we're really just focusing on keeping the program active, keeping our strategies and our activities through the model that we have current. And so that's where we started. So the first goal that we set was to expand our model all the way out into Yuma. Primarily right now, we are serving northern Arizona. However, the Yuma and La Paz counties do have pretty much complementary or similar need to what we see here in northern Arizona. So we wanted to expand the model to Yuma through collaboration with Arizona Western College. The second goal that we had was introducing 2 revised strategy areas to students attending Mojave Community College and utilizing self-advocate feedback to create an inclusive post-secondary transition workbook. So under our current model, we do have 10 distinct strategy areas. And so we decided to revise 2 of those, and I'll talk about those in a little bit. And then we also wanted to bring in a new branch. So we kind of took a 2-tiered approach of 1, looking at what we're currently doing under our current model program strategies with students already enrolled at Mojave Community College, and then comparing that a little bit to what new incoming students would benefit from and how this revised structure would help them to successfully transition into college in a new area that we've not yet worked in, which is down in Yuma. So under our first goal, we focused really on kind of expanding that partnership into the high needs area of Yuma, collaborating a lot with the Arizona Western College staff to obtain really unbiased feedback since they're kind of fresh eyes to the program. We really spent a lot of bit of time meeting with their staff. We presented to their faculty on it, and we had really overwhelmingly positive faculty support and feedback from day one. And we also wanted to work with them specifically to incorporate best practices to help us inform that workbook that will work in some rural or under or unserved areas. Under the second goal, we revised two of our current strategy areas. So the first one is one of our current strategy areas is specific to collaborative teaming. And so we wanted to kind of replace or kind of pull out that collaborative teaming, which really kind of right now looks like our advisory council, to kind of just develop a specific student self-advocacy group. A lot of times the students are not able to attend our advisory council meetings due to like their class schedules. And so we really wanted to create a separate group where the students had a voice and could work almost like a student advisory group and kind of complement the other advisory group as well. The logic behind that decision was that, and the logic and the data was that SIPC students are experts with lived experiences and that they're more likely to work in a collaborative environment with their peers than any other population. And that, of course, their voice is really what our partners respond to. The second revised strategy area was to kind of substitute out the area of professional development, which is something that we currently do. And Tricia spoke to that a little bit, that relates to increasing institutional awareness. We introduced a campus and community outreach, response and engagement or core team to revise some of those current, look at what we're currently doing in the area of professional development, but instead of us kind of being the ones to give information to them about inclusive post-secondary education, having it kind of be in reverse, where they are now the community and campus experts informing us in a professional level as to what would work in some areas or instances, what might work, any current changes that we would need to be aware of. So kind of just shifting the narrative instead of the information going out, having more information coming in. The logic behind that was that campus and community partners are experts with lived experience as well in supporting transitioning students. They are equipped to identify best practices that are tested and proven, and their input will refine future professional development goals and objectives. The third goal that we had, building bridges for transition, was really kind of an overarching goal to collect, analyze, and use all of the data from the experts. So really leaning into that student advisory group as well as that core team to develop a transition workbook. This was really our deliverable, and we tied this back to sustainability and saying, in rural or underserved areas where we may not be able to always gain access to, or where there may be shortages in transition staff, what is something that we could actually give them that is sustainable, that could be iterative, meaning we could go back and we could revise it and update it, that would take a lot of our program strategies that we implement and kind of make them accessible to the general public. So the workbook was really designed to provide those best practices for transitions that may be used by professionals and families working with youth with IDD across a post-secondary transition timeline. So starting as early as 10th grade or 11th grade, what are some of the things that you need to be considering if you're a parent or a caregiver? What are things that you need to be considering if you're a teacher? What are things you would need to consider if you're that VR specialist? We also wanted it to be a low-cost, high-value instrument that could be used in areas where need is high, but resources are limited. And then lastly, we wanted to ensure that the program model strategies are accessible and can be replicated for long-term sustainability. So to speak a little bit about the deliverable, which was the Inclusive Post-Secondary Transition Workbook, it was a pretty in-depth research project. We had a lot of data points, starting with the literature review, where we looked at 139 unique items, including articles, reports, web pages. We were specifically looking for contemporary literature or data, focusing on the themes of person-centered programming, campus and community resources, incorporation of mentors and coaches, which is something our program currently does, career planning or looking at those employment outcomes, and then on that professional development side, turning back to universal design for learning, training for faculty and staff. Once we were able to kind of pull out the literature, that informed what the actual groups themselves were kind of tasked with giving us more feedback. So we were able to identify some core themes, some strategies that were proven to have worked in other instances. And then we kind of created a focus group questionnaire, one specifically for students, one specifically for those professionals, just to kind of further flesh out and explore those ideas and then get that lived experience feedback that kind of will complement the theory that we see in the literature. So we also introduced retrospective surveys. So we started off by just looking at where are our students now? Are the program strategy models that we're using working? We wanted to kind of just see what the students themselves that are currently in the program said were some of the things that were most beneficial for them. Some of the notable points we saw in that retrospective survey data was that 86% of students that joined CIPC set personal goals more frequently. 66% indicated that they set academic goals more often. 73% felt more confident to attend classes by themselves, and 66% are more confident speaking to a teacher directly when experiencing a problem. So we were able to look at those retrospective surveys. We were able to look at the literature and really identify some of our key strategies that we wanted to amplify in the workbook as being successful. I mentioned just a minute ago the focus group. So again, once we had all of the literature data, the retrospective survey data, we designed these focus group questionnaires and brought together convenings of the student advisory group or that self-advocacy group, as well as the campus and community outreach group. So under the student advisory group, we were really soliciting qualitative feedback on what works and what doesn't work. I'll give an example. We had looked at the literature related to peer mentoring. Sometimes we've seen that our students are seeking to better differentiate between the role of a coach and a peer mentor. And some of the feedback that we got was really illuminating. And the fact that some of the strategies that we were recommending our peer mentors do, students were telling us that doesn't really work for them. Sometimes those peer relationships felt a little awkward, and they were able to give us feedback of like, this is actually what students with IDD and just students in general in our age population would be interested in doing with their peers. And this is the better way to go about establishing those relationships. On the other side, the campus and community outreach response and engagement group were asked to give qualitative feedback on any available resources, some agency limitations, access to training that's needed to support students with IDD. This was really, really helpful because not only did it allow us to collect information that we may not have been fully aware of, specifically in working in areas like UMA, or there was a heavy emphasis on it being a primarily or a dominantly Spanish-speaking area. So thinking again about even language translation, the usage of plain language, those were some of the things that kind of came out from that core group, as well as it also helped us affirm those relationships. So we were really able to kind of reaffirm having a communicative and collaborative exchange with partners that we already work with, but that really are able to engage a little bit closer with our staff on a more one-to-one or topic-specific basis. On the screen here is just a screenshot of what the workbook looks like, because we did a lot of work on it. We had a lot of data, and it's a lot more to unpack, obviously, than we have to present today. But we had our amazing design and dissemination team help us draft the cover, front and back cover. We have entitled the workbook Aligns Accessible Learning and Inclusive Guidelines for Network Success. It is still an iterative, as I mentioned, process. So we are still in the process of going back. We are implementing some more interactive elements within the workbook. So kind of like checklists where people can actually like check off. We think that would be really beneficial for like parents or caregivers who are a lot of times looking for information. They kind of need it really fast. They need it simplified. They need a very linear timeline of steps to help them navigate that college transition process. And then on the back, obviously, we have all of our contact information just in case the workbook lands on someone's desk and we want it to be shared and make its way to 7 or 8 people's desks. And along the way, hopefully every person that has a chance to get their hands on this workbook will be able to find our information here on the back. And if they are so inclined, reach out to us, because that will, again, open opportunities for us to expand our professional development, establish partnerships and relationships, which is just another component related to sustaining the program. I also took a few screenshots of some sample content of kind of what the workbook first looks like when you open it up. So it's an interactive. If you're accessing it online, you can pull it up, look at the table of contents, and maybe I am just trying to figure out how do I even use this, or if this is this even for me. You can click here to like a general strategies area. We have them kind of broken up from high school. These are the people that are working with our students before they transition. So all of their information, tips, and guidelines are going to be here. These are people who are more so on that transition page. So that could be some service providers. That could also be, of course, parents, which parents, guardians, we try to implement into all areas. And then this last one here is really for the college success. So this is, again, when the student is introduced to college and they're actually in that environment and that transition has occurred. We know that high school and some transition folks may drop off of the process. So this is really where the college team is going to pick up. They're going to be able to immediately start engaging with that student and walking with them through a very dedicated timeline of steps, all of which are really appropriate to students with IDD, because the students themselves have told us, and our community, our campus partners have also kind of affirmed from their side what an appropriate timeline would look like to support a student with IDD. Here's some of the narrative when you first come in, just kind of having people introduced to, again, who is this for? What is the first thing you should do? Challenge your assumption. If you picked up this workbook, it is going to talk about transitioning students with IDD. So we immediately invite the reader to engage and learn more about transition and learn more about individuals with IDD being successful in college environments, employment, and so on. So to summarize, before we get to the best part of the presentation from my perspective, which are always our success stories, the overall impacts of our Year 4 program were really kind of broken up into 4 elements. And when I say impacts, where did we internally as a team, what did we benefit from having that additional year of funding? We produced the workbook. A lot of that stuff is going to be community or campus kind of outward facing, as well as the services that we provide to our students. But how did we as a team benefit, and what were our impacts? Well, the first of which was in summer 2023, we had 3 series summer workshops on strategic planning, looking at our programs as a whole, reassessing things like our application process, peer mentor training, again, things that we were getting feedback from. We have another restructuring session planned for this summer, which will be again a 2-day revisiting of the workbook, revisiting of all of our service areas, because now we have some folks down in Yuma as well. So we're really trying to create greater cohesiveness in between all of the zones as well as our staff. Outreach, we really are able to now take this workbook and put it out there. We're able to go to conferences, provide it as a resource or a guide. For example, at the ADE IDEA conference, we plan to have some there. We definitely will have copies on handout at the IHD conference that will be happening in June. We can mail these out. And then the last step would be working with our dissemination team to actually translate the materials to be accessible and available online. Funding, all of the data that we're finding, it really does contribute to us being able to write successful grants. So we have submitted at least one additional grant focusing on assistive technology, which is one of our primary strategy areas as is. And then we have another pending grant that we're going to be pursuing this year that we hope, if funded, will be able to give us the opportunity to continue on into years 5 or 6 with the work that we do. And then lastly, we were able to really kind of establish some additional collaborations as a result of this, one of which is we were able to better tap into what NAU here currently is pursuing under Project Elevate, which is a program that they're proposing to put forward that will service primarily individuals with more moderate IDD or those that have really high support needs. And so we are looking at a way to create like a transition bridge where maybe a student comes into us, they may not be ready to take an inclusive class in a main environment. And so they may want to have this Project Elevate to help them earn a credential, and vice versa. Students could complete the Project Elevate and then transition into our program. And then we've joined a couple of statewide alliances. So we're sharing the information and the work that we're doing. We're getting information from them, both on the statewide level, partnering with Grand Canyon University, Arizona State, and University of Arizona. And then also that Four Corners Regional Alliance, which is sponsored through the actual TIPSIT Coordinating Center. And that includes representation from Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, and Colorado. So I will turn it back over to Tricia, who's going to share just a few of our success stories and, of course, our never-ending and overwhelming gratitude to the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council.
Yes, I get the fun part. So I'm just going to read a couple highlights out of these comments from students. First, highlighting that the student, for being back in SIPC program, has helped him get back into school, provided with supports the student had never had before. And those supports that we were able to provide were sources for the student to turn to for support and guidance. And whenever I needed someone to listen to the student, they were there. So I think this student's comment has made it clear how much they appreciate the program and how much additional support it provided for them. And this student is or some feedback from a unique student who is one of our students, but has also taken a part-time position with us as one of our peer mentors. So it's been very exciting to see this student develop their skills and confidence as they've moved through their post-secondary education. So they shared that SIPC has helped me transition from community college to a four-year university. This was a big change, and they really helped me continue my education. They were able to attend the IHD conference, which was a different experience for them, or a new experience for them. And they really enjoy being a peer mentor and being an advocate with their own experiences and being able to share their expertise.
And I would just like to spotlight the photo image that you all are looking at here. which we have 2 individuals that are at IHD working in our conference room. And this is one of our SIPC students. And this was at a very recent event that the peer mentors, again, looking at the feedback that they got from the students, they shifted their approach to engaging with students, and they organized with the student feedback this event where they hosted a day of arts and craft making, with the end goal being to decorate their shared office space here at IHD. So the SIPC team, the peer mentors and students have a space here on NAU campus where they are able to come, they can meet. It's a warm and welcoming space that all of the students themselves have contributed either art to, they've hung photos, they've helped, put down the rug placements in the room. So it really is a space that they've created. And we're hoping that we will be able to utilize these sort of peer mentor and student activities to decorate some of our spaces that we have on our partner sites as well. So students in other areas can share and also have that gathering space. So that concludes our presentation for today. Up on your screen, I've placed a few QR codes. The one QR code underneath Learn More will definitely take you to our homepage on the NAU IHD website. There's an interest form there. So if you are able to access that with the QR code, you'll see another QR code embedded in there that if you're interested in learning more, you can always just fill out a quick informational form, and one of our coaches or team will reach out. That also tells just a little bit more about some of the existing partnerships that we have. And then the other one under the Follow Us will take you to our SIPC linked tree, which will then connect you to Facebook or Instagram, depending on your preferred social media. And I can say that we've had an amazing uptick in our social media. We have quite a few followers, and it's kind of continuing to grow. We are actively posting all sorts of information related to events, programming for students across all of the regions here. And then of course, our contact email is at the top. So if you have questions, you can definitely send us an email there. But please be on the lookout for us at some upcoming conferences and events. We will have workbooks available and ready to hand out, and we will also we can also send those out upon request. So thank you so much for the time, and I am going to stop share.
Okay, well, thank you so much. You guys are doing great work up there. I'm so excited that it's expanding, and I know the joint work with Think College, you mentioned the other universities you're working with, we're all kind of working together on that, is exciting to really expand opportunities and resources and empower those individuals and families.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I think it's exciting work and money really well spent. You've got a couple of comments. I'm going to read Mike's first. The workbook will be a great resource. So thank you, Sakina. And Mike said, thank you, Sakina, and your team for making SIPC a success. It is. And then Jana Morell with RSK, Raising Special Kids. They're hosting a Transition Institute for Families, Youth, and Young Adults on Saturday, July 13th. We would love to invite you to present along with Share the Workbook with attendees. So Jana, what do you think?
I think that's an unequivocal yes. I was getting ready to, because unfortunately I am like in between a meeting, so I'm going to jump right out of this and go right back into another. Okay. But I am putting in the chat, Jana, yes, let's please connect. Trisha's going to be your best person, and we will put our information in there. But you can count on SIPC to be there on the 13th.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It's amazing.
Not a problem. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you so much. That's exciting. Does anybody have any comments? Marcy, going to share SIPC with our TA folks, our ITAC, for other state councils to learn about this. Okay, Mary, go right ahead. I see your hand raised.
Hi, thank you. Boy, this is exciting, the project. I have a question for maybe a future reference. One of the things that we've discovered in the public health workforce focus groups that we've had for elder people with IDD and their families was some different findings. And one of them was that one of the areas of interest to develop was education, training, and lifelong learning. And lifelong learning usually comes from universities and colleges and stuff like that. Do you see this, the kind of model that you have here and what you've learned here, being something that could be replicated in to try to integrate some elder folks with IDD into lifelong learning experiences?
I can answer that very briefly, Mary. I can say yes. We've identified at IHD that expanding our work into aging and elderly populations is one of our priorities. I've already actually done some background work. There's a college system in California that has kind of like a, I guess you could say, a continuing edge. It's through the community college system there, but they have a very specific program called LEAP. And their focus, their primary focus is on kind of these professional credentials in certain areas or certificates, but they're over like 55% of their population is age 65 or over. So they definitely have the model. I do think that it could work. I think that looking at what they're doing and then looking at some connection between the specific parameters, I guess, that we would want to consider when working with folks with IDD. I do think that there is a relationship there. And I agree with you. I think lifelong learning is essential. And I think that especially for our elderly and aging population, not only is it continuing on their skills, but it also can minimize things such as loneliness, feelings of isolation. It keeps them engaged. It helps them have that multi-generational engagement at times. So I can say I've started. And I'm always happy to continue the conversation if someone wants to continue with me.
Well, we're headed that way, I think. So thank you.
Not a problem. Good luck. Thank you again. I have to go. And Trisha, I think will still be here. And it was an honor. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Sakina. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Trisha, I'm glad you're staying. I know Kathy has her hand raised.
Trisha, is there a section in this workbook that is for families and caregivers that helps them, you know, as they're getting their kids ready for transition?
Yes, there is. I wish I had a copy of it that I could flip to, but if you recall on the slides, there's that table of contents and there's a section specifically for them, depending on where the students are. Like if they're already a college student or if they're in high school, there's sections within each section specifically designed for families, specifically designed for students. And then in addition, there's also a section specifically designed for professionals that work within that population.
Oh, great. Great. Thank you.
Go right ahead, Kristen.
Thank you. And Kathy may have been heading down this way too, but you know, we from VR are partnering and helping to support some of the students through school. And so through the payment of the tuition and such. So we wanted to see if there is a section on VR in there as well as how to engage with VR, that it's an opportunity.
Yes.
I assumed yes, but because we're on those meetings, but I just wanted to make sure because I'm not directly involved. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there
any other questions for me?
Okay, Mike just commented the workbook will be helpful for students and families at resource and transition fairs. And boy, that's the truth, because we're looking truly for a roadmap on how to get there. So Trisha, thank you so much for your time today. Great presentation and great information. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for your ears. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. You have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right. We have got one more presentation today from the Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities at the U of A. This is Elevating Refugee Perspectives About Access to Disability Services in Arizona. And Julie Arman and JC will be presenting that today. Are you ladies ready?
Yeah, yes, we are. Hi, everybody. I'm going to share my screen if I can. Let's see here. Yes. Is everyone seeing the slides?
It's just now popping up.
Okay. Great. So I am Julie Arman, and I am affiliated faculty with the Sonoran Center, and I'm a faculty in the Department of Family and Community Medicine. And JC, you probably know everybody here, but why don't I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm JC Farkas. I'm the director of the Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities.
So we have a packed agenda. And I know we want to allow some time for Q&A. So I'm going to, I hope you will excuse us as we kind of move through this quickly, but we want to give you a brief overview of the project, talk about the timeline and activities for this project, and then also an overview of the findings, and really spend some time on our recommendations. This is a project that could not have been done without a big team of people. So we have our co-investigators who are Doctors Jamie Edgen, Dr. Summer Adulaimi, and Suzanne Teeple. And we have many students, many of whom with lived experience, who've joined us to do this work. Our broad project goals were to really understand access to and the use of disability services for the diverse communities of refugees with disabilities. And I should have highlighted diverse, or we should have highlighted diverse, because we really want that whatever recommendations are taken up by the council, by others, the acknowledgement of the diversity of this population, which is talked about as a kind of monolithic population. We really need to acknowledge the diversity, and that diversity is constantly changing based on conflict in the rest of the world. We also wanted to describe best practices to reduce gaps and increase access to disability services for refugees. So you all have seen this. This is a wonderful report that the Planning Council commissioned in 2018, really focused on data collection from service providers and who reported that refugees had difficulty navigating disability service systems, challenges with language and interpretation. Also, they recognized disability-related stigma and employment challenges for the population. And many of these findings unfortunately persist, and we found them in our own research with people with lived experience. We extended our timeline for this project a little bit. Thank you to the Planning Council for accommodating that. We extended it by a few months because this work is time consuming. We really tried to center our focus on community engagement. We had a community advisory board. We engaged really wonderful community partners who helped us recruit. We also focused on reciprocity because this, and that's a central core tenet of community engagement. The importance of sharing information with communities, and you'll hear some examples of where in talking to people we realized where there were knowledge gaps, and we tried to connect them to services or information. We also did a policy scan. That data, specific data, is not reported in this presentation. Instead, I'm going to go and click through here. I have a lot of animation. Instead, we're really focused on the group concept mapping and the in-depth interviews that we did. But we used the policy scan to come up with our recommendations and really kind of used a triangulation, what we call triangulation, to pull together group concept mapping, which JC will talk about in depth, and then in-depth interviews, which I will talk about, and then pulling together some policies from other states as well. And then to do that, we all that analysis brought us to the final report. JC?
Sure. So here is, I want to mention that group concept mapping. It's a process that allows diverse groups of people to come together and kind of generate ideas and structure in a way that we can visually see what some of these ideas mean across this group. And one of the things we were really we wanted to make sure that folks with lived experience were part of this process in some way. And so in addition to some of the online way we collected information through the group Wisdom software, we also held in-person focus groups with refugees with disabilities and their family members to really frame and get some of those ideas that others looked at as part of this full process. But to kind of situate us in thinking about how this is such a complex, multifaceted community with competing priorities and needs and challenges and experiences. But one of our participants said, I don't know why they don't help us, whether it's race, religion, non-English speaker, refugee, are my assumptions of why we're ignored. They ignore us as refugees, and this increases our sickness. And so this was a mom talking about all the stuff that had gone on with her sons and even involvement with police and that intersection between disability and some of the other experiences they're having with their refugee and other identity ways that they identify. So I mentioned with the group concept mapping, every single one of these dots you see, these numbered dots, are a different idea that was generated by our participants, both folks with lived experiences as well as people who serve this population either through disability services or refugee services. And so the software allows us to analyze how much people group all of these ideas together. And so our community advisory board helped us label what these different group of ideas really represent. And so we came up with these 5 groups that focus on culturally responsive, accessible health and disability service benefit systems, agency training and coordination about refugees and disability, community support, representation and mentorship, refugee rights and self-advocacy education, and language and resource access. So the other thing that we did as part of this process is also have our participants rate each of these ideas that each of these dots represent on how important they are and how much they're currently happening in the community. And so with these, looking at the clusters here, these different grouping of ideas, the more layers that are in that cluster means the more people rated that as important on this map, and on the left and on the right, the map for how much is currently happening in the community. So you'll notice that agency training and coordination about refugees and disability are highly rated on both, as that it's very important and that's happening all the time. But that may also speak to some of the bias of folks who participated from the service system side, as folks who may have already engaged or went to the trainings that happened as a result of that first report, right? And not necessarily that it's completely ongoing. And it's hard to, talking with our advisory group, to kind of see how much what is perceived as happening all the time versus what really is happening for some of these. So especially when we talk about the culturally responsive, accessible health and disability service and benefit systems. That was saying it's happening most of the time. But We also heard a lot of stories that we'll kind of get into in the in-depth interviews that might have some conflict with. But what these two maps really help us do when we can look at them together is what we call these go zones, where we can highlight what's really important to people, but is not currently happening, and that might be opportunities for us to act on or have some intervention in some way. And so we'll just give a couple of highlights from each of the different groups, the clusters. So here from the culturally responsible, accessible health and disability services and benefit systems group, getting a timely diagnosis, having case managers for public health that specialize in refugee care, and making sure that interpretation is available, all came up as really important, but not really happening right now. Within agency training and coordination about refugees and disability, primary care physician education about disabilities, it's important, but not really happening. Enforcing the right to an interpreter or translated materials, and training for law enforcement and border patrol are things that we're seeing as important, but not happening. Under community support, representation, and mentorship, some of those ideas that came up that are important but not happening are caregivers and providers are actually from refugee communities, and that members from refugee communities are there to help guide them with resources and what is available to them. So really having folks from those communities be those navigators. And then a refugee crisis center was also suggested. Within refugee rights and self-advocacy education, things that were seen as important but not really happening are parent groups to share information, peer mentorship from refugees with success in navigating disability systems, and having refugee role models with a disability. So really highlighting how there can be more community and opportunities for folks within the community to support one another and highlight success. And then within language and resource access, training for refugees on disability and what that means in the US context, culturally and linguistically appropriate diagnostic assessment for disabilities. This came up a lot, especially in terms of education, and that, you know, even if an interpreter might be part of this, those assessments were not validated and created with these populations in mind. Education services in their language. So these are just some highlighted examples of things that are really important but aren't happening right now.
Thanks, JC. And there will be, these themes will come through again in our discussion of the in-depth interviews. And so we did 4 interviews, 1 in Phoenix, 3 in Tucson, with 9 people. So generally with dyads, so a person with a disability and a supporter, sometimes with more than 1 supporter. And these are a few slides about what we've found. Big, high-level themes. We have a link to our report at the end of this presentation, and we're hoping that people will read the report for more detail. We found a kind of lack of knowledge of individual rights or opportunities for people with disabilities. There was one family who lamented the fact that their child, who was 16, was going to have to graduate next year when they felt that he wasn't ready for that. So here's an example of where we were able to share some information and connect them with resources that could help them understand the circumstances when students with disabilities may stay in school until age 22. So there was, you know, not an unclear, they had a lack of clarity about what those individual rights were for their child. Also, people described being unable to get the support needed to pursue education or employment, whether that was transportation or support at the college. We had one woman in Phoenix who was interested in going to college, but couldn't get assistance to do the things that she needed to do for her work. Unsurprisingly, perhaps, we found a significant lack of interpretation actually happening, where our interviewees described that interpreters were not provided to them, or they were provided in an incorrect language or dialect. One family that spoke Somali, I believe, described having an interpreter showed up who spoke Spanish, and so that wasn't very helpful for them. And also interpretation, yes, Melissa. Also, interpretation may not be made available to supporters of adults with disabilities. This is another just brief example that we'll provide. There was a young man who was an adult. His mother was his supporter and his guardian. And when he would go for service visits, they would told him that they didn't need to ask for an interpreter because he's an adult. And so therefore his mother, who was his main supporter, didn't know what was happening. And she relied on him to share with her what the results of that meeting were. And then unsurprisingly, this is one of those statements you're like, well, of course, this is logical, but it needs to be said. Without effective interpretation, it's not possible for staff to meaningfully engage with the person with a disability and their supporters. So then what happens? People become disengaged. And so in addition to this, we found some other, service system issues that lead to disengagement. We talked to people who, in which like family members expressed, and the person with a disability themselves, that they were not included in the meetings. Sometimes one family described being presented with a list and of goals for their child, but they didn't feel that they were realistic. They were not important goals to the family, and they questioned their value. And then also the length of time to get services creates additional barriers. One family described their child having a support coordinator, but it took 10 years to actually get services. And oftentimes, and families described starting over with one mistake. So like if the family or the service system rep misses a meeting, it turns into this like cascade of barriers where they have to just, start from the beginning again. And finally, there was many of our interviewees expressed the importance of the community or the collective. And we really wanted to highlight this because this is, you can see an example of this in the service provider refusing to provide an interpreter for the young man and his mother. There is an acknowledgement, there's a lack of acknowledgement that their family and the collective may be important to this group of people. And I would argue to many people. So specifically for children under 18, families reported a burden because they thought that parents were unable to serve as caregivers for reimbursement under access. And when we shared this with our advisory board, they rightly pointed out that that may not be the case right now, but the important thing is that the family perceived this. And we were able to circle back with the family to talk a little bit more about this. It also may be important to the family to provide care instead of a paid direct support professional because they feel they know the person best. Also, clients, people with disabilities, family members, caregivers, supporters may prioritize the well-being of their family collective and or communities rather than the individual. JC and I would often ask, what's important to you? And people would respond, or interviewees would respond, well, for our community, etc. And we'd have to kind of circle back to talk about the individual. But so because we acknowledge that the individual, our whole model for this work acknowledges that the individual is not isolated. So this is what's called a socio-ecological model. Many of you have probably seen it. It's used in public health. It acknowledges that the individual is embedded in systems. So like at the individual level, as you can see here in much of many of the findings that we have, there may be individual understanding of disability self-advocacy. Like there may not be an understanding of self-advocacy as we operate in the United States. At the relationship level, you can see families managing many socioeconomic needs along with supporting a person with a disability. At the community level, as JC mentioned, there are opportunities for refugee communities and disability organizations to build capacity to address needs, but those opportunities aren't being, capitalized on. Like they expressed a need for that. And then at the social or societal level, there's a need for policies that truly support inclusion, such as linguistic access with quality control. And I'm going to zoom through some high-level recommendations and then turn it over to JC to talk in more detail. So some recommendations to improve service quality, ensure language access, adequate funding, and oversight. Oversight, we think, is the key. JC will talk more about this, to ensure adherence to language policies. Consider innovative approaches such as a standalone language line. Establish reliable transportation. This is something we hear all the time. This is not surprising to this group, I'm sure. Timely, universally accessible, and linguistically responsive, importantly. As JC mentioned earlier, timely and linguistically appropriate diagnosis and assessment. Also, this is based on, this next recommendation is based on research in other countries. There's a study in Australia that really highlighted this point. Bolster primary and secondary educational institutions' ability to engage with refugee families, which includes addressing families' basic needs and facilitating assessment, as JC mentioned earlier. From a program level, possibly identify and educate gatekeepers for refugee communities. This might include, importantly, interpreters. If interpreters do not understand the language of disability, the jargon of disability, the interpretation may not, the communication may not happen as we would want it to. Provide education to refugee families about individual rights, the focus on individual rights and self-advocacy in the United States, which may be very different from where they're coming from. Potentially implement peer support programs, as JC mentioned, and then possibly train disability-focused refugee case managers who have knowledge of these systems, and then following New York's model, implement possibly a DD navigator to provide sustained advocacy at the state level. And I'm going to turn it over to JC.
So, before when we first proposed this project, we were already looking at this disability disparities framework that Georgetown University's National Center for Cultural Competence created. And that center is also affiliated with the UCED there. And so this really helped also frame the way we looked at some of these recommendations, because really it's looking at the disparities, not just overall, but in terms of availability, accessibility, acceptability, quality, and utilization of these different services and supports. And, the report, everything goes into more detail, especially our appendix about this framework. But for the sake of time, we're going to kind of move forward with the recommendations. So one of the main things that, in talking with both our CAB and our internal project group, with the recommendations that really came from the data, is that at that system level, like where can we intervene, right? And part is that we don't really know what data is currently being collected and what's being done with it. And so state agencies should really conduct, for those who are serving these populations, conduct ongoing evaluation of the programming they're doing, but most importantly, through quality improvement initiatives to really look at specific data points around language use for their members, refugee status, use of interpreters, and use of transportation services. So, for example, like the Division of Developmental Disabilities data could be assessed quarterly, looking at their members' length of time to service delivery by refugee status or language use to see where those gaps are and kind of look more to those specifics. Is there a disparity in utilization, or is it quality, acceptability, all of those different points to kind of really look at what some of those issues are to be able to intervene. We also recommend, we know that the Planning Council already has some data hub, but could really serve as the hub for broad service system data collection and accountability related to this population. And then at a statewide level, assessing transportation needs by surveying refugees or staff, refugee settlement agents staff. This came up. We know transportation is an issue for everybody in the disability community, right? But there is added barriers, especially when it comes to language and how you can even request transportation, you have to go through so many different steps before you can even get to the language piece to get access to be able to request the transportation that's needed. And then kind of speaking back to the recommendations about navigators and training of folks from these communities to be part of that service, navigation and guiding support for families, is to really build the workforce capacity. And one opportunity maybe with community health worker programs. We know there's one already started that's looking at in Phoenix through the state's refugee resettlement agency, but ensuring that disability is included in some of those efforts. And then engaging communities with disability-focused events, with, in Phoenix, Tucson, and maybe other areas, but primarily those are larger resettlement areas that can provide some of those resources and in languages that are accessible to them.
So if there are any questions, we're happy to take them now. Questions or thoughts? Here's the full report.
I'll put the link in the chat.
Oh, thank you, JC. I'll give a minute for people to scan if they want to scan, and then JC put the link in the chat, and then I will stop presenting so that we can chat.
I'm going to state the obvious, and that there is so much work to do, right? It's like it's hard enough for people that are natives to this country access services. And if you come here and don't speak the language and people do not understand your culture, there's so many barriers. Do you feel like there's some good solutions in the mix coming up?
So I'll start, JC. You might have other thoughts, but we really, in this work, we were able to meet people who they just need more help, more money, more, assistance. They're already doing some of the work. So how do we help build their capacity to do that work adequately? And I think too, really building this into, and this is going to really benefit all new Americans, not just refugees, but building a quality control piece into this this work, I think, will really assist people in getting the services that they need. What do you think, JC?
No, I agree. There's some different models out there. Julie mentioned New York, as well as I think Minnesota was another one that had some good that's incorporated in the policy itself. But there are people already here in Arizona, and we were lucky enough to partner with them who, with some additional support and seeing the value of what they do, could really be doing so much, reach more folks, and be a real resource to their own communities.
Yeah, I can see that. And you mentioned the quality control piece is that not the truth for every single state system? It's like, even when things are put in place or we have policies, here's what we're supposed to do. If you don't have anybody following up and double checking on that to make sure policies are being followed and the rules are being followed, they're not worth anything, right? And that's so much my frustration with systems in general, but it's why we're all in this, right? So thank you so much. We're really grateful for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other comments or questions for JC and Julie?
This is Kathy. I really appreciate all the work you've done. I'm sitting here just thinking, oh my gosh, here's an idea for future projects for ADDPC. And so thank you. This has been really helpful.
Thank you to the Planning Council for supporting this work and showing a commitment to it. It's really, the need is there. I actually, when I was kind of going through the slides earlier, I was reflecting on conversations that we had with people, multiple people, through interpreters who said, please share our story with the state. They all thought that we were like, we had some, decision-making power, and we said, we'll share this with people who maybe can help. But they wanted to share their stories.
Well, I think that's the most impactful usually, right? When we hear from the people that it affects.
Yep.
Mike, I can read your question, or you can ask it yourself directly. If you pop up on the screen, I'll know. Okay, I'm going to read Mike's question. So Mike Leva asked, is there a refugee population that has been more successful navigating the system and obtaining services?
JC, I don't know if you know. I actually think that would have to come from the data, from the data from DES, from the DD system, because then you can look at those issues like, how many people from this region are enrolled in DD, and how long does it take them to get services, and all of those like quality issues that JC was mentioning. JC, what do you think?
Right. Yeah. I mean, what the data collection that we did wasn't systematically looking at how folks were accessing services or being able to navigate them. I mean, from many folks who are willing to talk to us is because they've experienced a lot of barriers, and so we don't have that data, but I think there's opportunity to be able to uncover and find that data and answer this question.
Mm-hmm.
It would be really interesting to look at where the majority are coming from, and is everybody's experience the same, collectively overall, or different groups having success or some having more challenges. That would be kind of interesting to know. And if something's working, all right, let's expand that. And if it's not, it's kind of like our behavioral health survey that we talked about earlier. We can see some really interesting things when we look at demographics that's in that report. So
I can guess, based on the data that we did collect, that it's the folks who have a trusted cultural broker, I would call them, in their community, who can help them, navigate the services. But yeah, I think it takes it, definitely needs a systematic evaluation.
I would agree. And it's interesting, just as you started speaking, Jana commented, yeah, the regions that have more cultural brokers experiencing more success than others. So, okay. And Michael, yep, Michael says cultural brokers are key. Boy, isn't that the truth, right? An ambassador, so to speak. All right. If there are no more questions or comments, I'm going to let our ladies go. Thank you so very much for the work that you're doing in your time today.
Thanks again to everyone, to the council for having us, and we're really passionate about this work. I think both JC and I, after talking to people and hearing their stories, it really ignites a passion. So thank you.
It shows. That's apparent. So thank you so much.
Take care.
Okay. We're going to move on to agenda item G, announcements. Are there any council?
Can I make a comment, a public input?
Oh, you got to wait just a minute. We're almost to that part, Mr. Delgado.
Oh, okay, I'll wait.
That's okay. Almost there. Are there any council members that have any announcements or things that they need to share? Okay, hearing none. Now I'm going to do a call to the public. Any members of the public that would like to speak? Mr. Delgado?
Yes, Northern Arizona parent support, a long time and advocate, of course. I'll just be real brief. March was a Disability Awareness Month, and I work with on like teleconferencing information on all the good things that happen. And in Arizona, I didn't see too much attention on that particular area because I did make some calls with various agencies if are they doing anything in celebration. Well, considering what we did, I was able to obtain the proclamation from the governor on disability. And I was able to get that. And my idea, my focus for this year, because I learned from the past, that we put it in the high school and elementary school bulletin, Bible, high school bulletin, put a copy of it, the proclamation, those nice words, and some of the special education teachers, and give it some recognition for other students to read it and kind of help one another, give it support. And that's about it. I heard this before, and this was done before likely, and I think it could be done if it could have been on the statewide level from the special ed teacher from statewide Tom Horn director's office. But that's all. I just wanted to make that comment real quick, like in the Jesse celebration, but on that point, because it's many special education students would probably read that at maybe half a page, and that thought came to me that I was trying to create something new in our ideas. So I just wanted to pass that on. You close it out, so I'll just close it out with that remark at that point. Thank you for allowing me to make that remark. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delgado. I think that's a good idea. Okay. Is there anybody else from the public that has a comment or a question? Okay. Hearing none, thank you all for your time today. Thanks for coming today. And thank you to our guest speakers. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and don't overheat. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Jana. You too.
Bye. Take care.